In this video, we're going to be breaking down 5 MLB games happening on July 2nd, 2026, and providing you with a side pick and a total pick for every matchup, 10 free MLB picks in total. As usual, stick around until the end because you won't want to miss out on anything. Pittsburgh Pirates versus Philadelphia Phillies. There's a certain rhythm to a getaway day at Citizens Bank Park, and this one has that unmistakable feeling of a home team walking in with the wind at its back. Philadelphia rolls into Thursday's finale after handing Pittsburgh's ace a 7-run afternoon on Wednesday. And when a lineup does that to a Cy Young winner under the lights, the confidence tends to bleed into the next day rather than evaporate. The bigger story isn't even what Philly did to the marquee guy though, it's what's waiting for the Pirates on the mound in return. Pittsburgh is countering with a young right-hander who's carrying a 5.76 earned run average into the middle of a heat wave on the road in the smallest ballpark in the National League against a lineup that has feasted at home all season and just finished stacking crooked numbers against much better competition. The Phillies sit 14 games over .500. They've locked up a series win in this set already, and the noon start is essentially a bonus game for a club chasing Atlanta in the division. Meanwhile, the Pirates are staring at a road matinee after a night game in 95-degree heat, coming off an emotional loss where their franchise arm got knocked around. That's the kind of spot where the underdog looks lifeless from the first pitch, and Philadelphia has been ruthless about closing out series when the door is even a little bit open. You can nitpick the fact that Philly is going with a guy making his first career start on the other side, and yes, that adds some volatility, but the counterweight is a bullpen that has been arguably the best late-inning group in the league behind their all-star closer and setup arms, plus a lineup that doesn't need a starter to go deep to win a game. Home field, hot bats, a shaky opposing arm, and a series they want to punctuate before the All-Star break. That's a stack of edges that's hard to ignore. As our first pick for this matchup, the Philadelphia Phillies money line is our full game side pick. Now for the run environment. This game screams for scoring the second you look past the surface-level pitching matchup. Citizens Bank Park is already one of the most hitter-friendly venues in the sport, and Thursday's forecast is calling for temperatures pushing the mid-90s with excessive heat warnings blanketing the region, which is basically the perfect storm for a baseball to travel. Balls that die on the warning track in April clear the fence in July heat like this, and both dugouts know it. Layer on top of that the fact that Philadelphia is rolling with a starter making his major league debut in that specific role, and the manager has already publicly said they're not using an opener, meaning a pitcher who has spent most of his career in long relief is being asked to navigate a big league lineup for the first time as the guy with the ball in his hand from pitch one. That's a recipe for a short leash and a bullpen day masquerading as a start, and once the middle relief gets involved on both sides, run prevention typically falls apart in this park. In this weather, Pittsburgh's counter isn't exactly a stopper either, given the earned run average sitting north of 5 and the general trend of this series producing crooked numbers, with 2 of the 3 games so far clearing double digits in total runs. There's the honest counterpoint that a matinee game with heavy heat can sometimes drain hitters and turn into a slog, and the Phillies did just play a long, physical night game less than 18 hours earlier, so fatigue is a legitimate variable. But when you weigh a bandbox ballpark, a heat wave, 2 vulnerable rotation spots, and a series that has already trended toward a fence, the math leans in one clear direction. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Quick commercial break. You know the deal. If you want to get our exclusive best sport picks to take things to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Go check it out. Commercial break over. Now back to the game. Cincinnati Reds versus Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewers have been treating their meetings with the Cincinnati Reds like a personal grudge match all season long. 5 head-to-head battles, 5 wins for the crew, and now they are chasing a 6th straight before the calendar even gets deep into July. The standings paint the picture in bold strokes. Milwaukee is perched atop the National League Central at 53-31, while Cincinnati has been drifting in the wrong direction, sitting at 39-46 and clinging stubbornly to 5th place in the division. That is not a gap you paper over with wishful thinking and a fresh lineup card. It is a canyon. Home cooking makes it that much tougher for the visitors to flip the script. American Family Field has been a fortress for the crew this season, and this club knows every inch of that mound, every quirk of the shadows during an afternoon start, every angle in those outfield corners. They are the kind of team right now that just feels like they belong on the winning side of the ledger, especially when a divisional rival keeps showing up looking for an answer that never seems to come. Cincinnati, meanwhile, has struggled all year long to keep pace with elite starting pitching, and Milwaukee happens to be sending out arguably the most dangerous arm in the sport right now, a young flamethrower who has redefined what electric looks like on a modern radar gun. Even with the visitors handing the ball to a young stud of their own who has been carving up hitters, the pieces surrounding him tell a very different story. Their bullpen has been leaking runs at brutally inconvenient moments, and their lineup has been running on fumes against premium stuff, which is exactly what awaits them this afternoon. Toss in the fact that the roadside is closing out a long swing, playing a getaway day matinee after a night game, and you can almost feel the road weariness settling into the visiting dugout. Milwaukee just has too many chips stacked on their side of the table here. Home field, momentum, matchup history, a rotation firing on all cylinders, and a clubhouse playing loose and confident under a manager who has them believing every night out. Honestly, fading the home team in this spot feels a little like sticking your hand into a wood chipper for pocket change. As our first pick for this matchup, the Milwaukee Brewers money line is our full game side pick. This one has all the fingerprints of a classic pitcher's duel, the kind of lazy summer afternoon where the beer vendors get bored and the pitching coaches get to sit back and sip their coffee in peace. Both arms taking the ball today have been painting masterpieces every fifth day this season. One of them has been chucking pitches so hot the radar guns look almost photoshopped, and the other is a former top overall pick who has been quietly slicing through elite lineups with a fastball slider combo that would make any old school scout misty-eyed. Both of these guys pile up whiffs at absurd rates, and neither is the type to hand out charity walks or float meatballs across the middle of the plate. That kind of profile naturally chokes off the rhythm of scoring innings. Beyond the guys on the bump, look at what surrounds them. The home team staff overall has been the best group in the sport at missing bats this year, and even when the starter eventually hands off the ball, the relief crew behind him tends to squeeze the life out of rallies rather than give them oxygen. The road team's offense, for all the flashes of thunder from a few dangerous bats in the middle of that order, has been dragging through a chilly stretch at exactly the wrong time, going quiet inning after inning whenever the opposing arm has real stuff. Now, could a couple of the bigger names in that visiting lineup still find a moment to make some noise? Sure, and it would be silly to pretend otherwise, but a moment is not a crooked number. The venue plays right into the same theme. American Family Field during a day game, with a controlled climate more often than not once the roof gets involved, is not the wild launching pad you find in some other ballparks around the league, and afternoon getaway games in general tend to lean quieter offensively than the primetime slots under the lights. Even the recent handful of meetings between these two clubs has trended more toward grinders than slugfests, particularly once the front-line starters get involved in the decision. There is simply too much run prevention on the diamond this afternoon to expect a scoreboard fireworks show. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Miami Marlins versus Colorado Rockies. There's something building in Miami right now that goes way beyond a hot streak or a lucky bounce. The Marlins just wrapped up the best calendar month in franchise history, 20 wins in June, a stretch that flipped a middling ball club into one of the more dangerous names in the National League. They rolled into Denver playing with real belief, and belief has a funny way of traveling well in this sport. Colorado, meanwhile, sits at 33-53, a season that's already tipped past disappointing and settled comfortably into rebuild mode. Through the first two games of this series, Miami has basically controlled the room, jumping on Colorado early, hanging crooked numbers, and never letting the home crowd get loud enough to matter. Now Colorado hands the ball to a veteran right-hander who's been getting knocked around most of the year, while Miami counters with a piece-it-together bullpen plan that, on paper, sounds risky at elevation. Here's the thing, though, their relief corps has quietly been one of the sneaky best late-inning groups in baseball, and Clayton McCulloch's staff has been mapping these bullpen days out with real intention behind every matchup. Colorado has to string together a full offensive game against a fresh, mixed-look plan, while their own arm most likely can't get them deep, and that's the exact recipe that's been repeating itself for months in Denver. Even at Coors, where no lad ever feels safe and eighth-inning weirdness is baked into the ballpark, the gap between these two clubs right now feels bigger than a coin flip's worth of variance. The confidence gap alone might be worth its weight here. As our first pick for this matchup, the Miami Marlins money line is our full game side pick. Coors Field is baseball's laboratory for chaos, and there's a reason it's been humbling pitching staffs for 3 straight decades. The thin mountain air flattens breaking balls, saps the bite off sinkers, and turns routine warning track flies into doubles before the outfielder even breaks on the ball. Add in a mid-afternoon first pitch with the sun sitting high overhead, temperatures pushing into the low 90s, and a light east-northeast breeze that isn't doing anyone on the mound any real favors. The scoreboard has already fallen in line with the vibe of this trip. Both games in this series have cleared 17 combined runs, and neither one felt like it was slowing down until the ninth was already in the books. Weather like this at altitude doesn't just tilt things toward hitters, it pretty much unbolts the outfield walls for the afternoon. Now stack the pitching backdrop on top of that. One side is running a mixed relief plan that historically gets exposed the deeper you get into a lineup at elevation, and the other side is trotting out a starter whose season line reads more like a warning label than a game plan. Rockies hitters do their best work at home, and the visiting lineup has been swinging with genuine conviction through this stretch, so both dugouts have reason to keep the crooked number machine humming into the late innings. Honestly, if you were sketching out a game designed to sail past whatever number the books put up, this is pretty much the blueprint: sun, altitude, shaky arms, and two offenses that don't need much of an invitation to get rolling. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Chicago White Sox versus Cleveland Guardians. Look at how this matchup shakes out on the visitors' side, and you start noticing why the market has flipped the usual home field script on its head. Chicago is bringing arguably the best story arm in the American League Central to Progressive Field, a guy who has been carving through opposing lineups all year with a 5 or 6 pitch mix that keeps hitters guessing. He is walking into this one at 9-3 with a sub-3 earned run average and a whip that sits under 1.20 across roughly 17 outings. That is not a hot streak or a small sample fluke. Honestly, that is a full season resume that reads ace, even if the front of the jersey does not. Cleveland, on the other hand, is trotting out a right-hander whose 2026 has been more of a roller coaster than a runway. Sure, he found a groove in June, and yes, his last outing was clean against Seattle, but his season-long earned run average sits above 4 and his whip is north of 1.36 for a reason. The bigger issue, though, is what the Guardians are bringing to the batter's box these days. Their two-time reigning division champs are still standing without their franchise cornerstone at third base, and another regular contributor is out with a foot issue. Over their last 10 games, they are hitting .225 with a grand total of 5 home runs. 5. Their team slugging in that window is a shade over .300, which reads more like a light-hitting utility infielder's line than a full lineups. Meanwhile, the visitors' pitching staff has been humming with a sub-3 earned run average over its own last 10 contests, and their bats are producing at nearly a .450 clip with 14 homers across the same stretch. Now, the counter is fair. The home side did take the finale of the June series in Chicago. They get their crowd, and their starter has legitimately been sharper in his last handful of outings. Home dogs bark, especially in the summer, especially against a division rival. But when one club has the clearly superior arm going, the healthier and hotter offense, and the other is asking a punch and jab lineup to outscore a rotation that has been slamming the door lately, you follow the resume, not the address. The recent head-to-head in the Windy City backs this up too, with Chicago taking 2 of 3 straight up despite the historic imbalance in this rivalry. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago White Sox money line is our full game side pick. Shifting gears to how the run column might actually fill up in this one. Progressive Field in July can be a funny animal. Yes, the forecast is calling for temperatures in the low 90s, and warm air technically helps the ball travel, but the ballpark itself is not exactly a bandbox. It has typically graded out closer to neutral, sometimes leaning pitcher-friendly, especially once the sun drops and the air off Lake Erie settles in for the evening. More importantly, though, look at how both starters are finishing their recent work. The Chicago righty just tossed 5 1/3 scoreless against Kansas City in his last time out. The Cleveland righty returned with 6 scoreless of his own against the Mariners. Both guys are riding real momentum into first pitch, and both pitching staffs behind them have been suppressing runs at a legitimate clip lately. The visitors' collective earned run average over their last 10 games sits at 2.90, and Cleveland's is at 3.47 over that same window. That is a combined stretch where scoring has been squeezed hard on both sides of the bullpen and rotation. Now flip to the bats and it gets even more compelling. Cleveland's offense has been genuinely broken, just 7.5 hits per game the last time out through 10, 5 combined homers, and a slug well under .350. Chicago is missing their biggest power threat in the middle of the order with a hamstring keeping him on the shelf, so their thump plays but with a ceiling. The recent series between these two down at Wright Field is telling too. The 3 games there produced scores of 6-5, 2-1, and 4-3. But 2 of those 3 landed comfortably below the neighborhood we are working with here. The pushback, sure, is the weather. 90+ in Cleveland with clear skies could push a couple of fly balls out that would otherwise die on the warning track. And Chicago's bats have been the hotter of the 2 lately, so upside from their side is not 0. But that upside gets checked by the fact that the Cleveland arm has actually been noticeably sharper his last 6 times out than his season line suggests, and the Guardians right now are basically playing station-to-station ball offensively. When you stack a park that does not inflate, 2 pitchers arriving on strong outings, bullpens both operating near their season best, and 1 lineup that is essentially frozen in place, the math starts leaning quietly but unmistakably in one direction. The series trend already told you what these matchups tend to look like, and there is no reason to expect this one to suddenly turn into a track meet. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. St. Louis Cardinals versus Atlanta Braves. Thursday night at Truist Park has a rubber match feel that just sits differently than the first 2 games of this series, doesn't it? These 2 clubs split the openers, the visiting side stole one Tuesday, the home team punched right back Wednesday, and now the whole 3-day trip to Atlanta comes down to who wants it more before the schedule flips them onto separate paths for the holiday weekend. And when you strip this one down to the bones, the home side is playing the exact type of game where they've quietly built one of the best resumes in the National League. They own a 24-15 mark at this ballpark. They're rolling out a pitching staff that has been near the top of the sport all year in earned run average at home, and they're doing it with a lineup that, even down some of their bigger names, has been more than enough to grind out runs against a Cardinals bullpen that's had its share of stretches where it just leaks. On the other side, you've got a St. Louis team that's talented and dangerous in flashes but has been walking a tightrope offensively for weeks, a rotation piece coming off back tightness that forced the team to skip a turn just days ago, and the reality that in his most recent outing before that skip, he got knocked around for 6 earned runs in 2 innings. That's a lot of question marks to bring into a hostile ballpark against a team that's minus 117 for a reason, and it's not because the market is guessing. The books have watched this Atlanta group play its best baseball at home all season, and the price reflects exactly that. Add in the fact that the visiting bats have been streaky at best in this series, cashing in early on Tuesday and then going quiet after the first inning on Wednesday in a 5-1 loss. And the pattern is starting to right itself. Home team, home crowd, home mound, rubber match, motivated to close out a series against a divisional wildcard threat before the Mets come to town. That's the kind of spot where you back the club that has the more stable foundation underneath them and the ballpark advantage tilting things their way. As our first pick for this matchup, the Atlanta Braves money line is our full game side pick. Now flip the lens over to the run environment, and this game starts to look like the kind of night where scoring might come a lot harder than the box scores of the series so far would suggest. The forecast at first pitch is calling for hot, humid, overcast conditions with essentially calm winds, and that matters more than people realize in Atlanta this time of year. Hot air can help the ball travel, sure, but when the wind isn't pushing anything and the humidity is thick, fly balls tend to die on the warning track rather than sneak over it, which flips the script on what people expect from a summer game in the South. Then you layer in the pitching context. The home side has been shockingly stingy at this ballpark all season, sitting near the top of the sport in home earned run average, and the Cardinals' offense has been one of the more frustrating units in baseball because they can't string things together against arms that limit damage. They rank near the bottom in extra base hit rate against starting pitchers this season, which is exactly the profile of team that struggles to push totals over the number in low-run environments. On the flip side, the Atlanta lineup has been dealing with its own turbulence, missing some pieces to injury. And while they've done enough to keep winning, they haven't exactly been treating opposing pitchers like batting practice lately. The visiting arm on the mound, when healthy and right, has shown he can absolutely dominate. We just saw him carry a perfect game into the 7th a couple starts back before finishing off a one-hit shutout, which tells you the ceiling is genuine even if the last outing was a mess. If he's actually feeling good after the extra rest, this could very easily be a game where both starting pitchers set a tone early and the bullpens close it down without much noise. Late innings in this park have been especially quiet for opposing offenses all year, and the Cardinals in particular have struggled in tied and trailing spots after the 7th inning. The total sitting at 9 feels like like a number that gives you juice on both sides of scoring in a game that has get to the ballpark, order a second round, and watch a pitcher's duel unfold, written all over it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.